What's up guys, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Today we're looking at this new knife. Comes to us from Milwaukee. You probably know them as a tool company, but they're putting out some EDC and utility knives. This is their hardline Recurve, and pretty good looking knife. Let me give you some specs here. Got that black stonewash finish, 3.5 inch blade, 8.2 inches overall. You can see there on the back, D2 is your steel, so it's going to stay sharp for a long time. Got some jimping on the top there. Do have that red spacer, which you would expect from Milwaukee. There's a lanyard hole, and you can actually see the red inside there as well. Pocket clip can go to either side, so right or left hand carry. It is going to be tip up only though. It's your only option as far as carry. Your handle is glass filled nylon on this side. You can see the frame lock on the other side. It does have a flipper with a bearing system, and you got that nice recurve. There are a couple different options. They have these types of their new EDC line or their utility line coming out that they have serrations on some of the blades. Obviously this one's the recurve. Super ergonomic. As soon as I picked it up, I'm like, I like how that feels in hand. And I was holding some other knives that same night, just testing them out, and this one was probably the most ergonomic of them all. And just the texture, overall nice texture. So it's not super aggressive, not super smooth. I think just right for what this knife would be, which is EDC and utility. All right, let's show you the knife in use a little bit here. This is just the package that came in. Again, for me, I'm thinking of this as a utility knife, something I'd keep on a work site. If I had to use it pretty aggressively for a variety of purposes, I wouldn't have any issues with that. Split this open here. That recurve is really nice. And cutting into that plastic, no issues whatsoever. Yeah, easy to use the knife. Gets the job done. Here's a look at the knife up against some cardboard. Yeah, so makes quick work of it. That blade is, to me, just the right thickness for like a utility knife. So strong enough you can do some heavier work, but not so thick that you can't get through this stuff. Let's do a little more detail work here. This is not a camping knife, but just to show you that it can cut through wood and do some of that finer work. It certainly is making those feathers. And now let's slice it up here. Here's a look at what that did, and I will tell you that despite that jimping there, it wasn't super uncomfortable when I was doing some of those more aggressive cuts, really locking in and pushing. So even when I do put my finger up against the jimping, I'm not really feeling a lot of discomfort or pain. And even when I'm done, I look at my hand and that's a cut from something else, but there's no marks or anything even there on my finger. Now, when they first contacted me, I asked them who is manufacturing your knives for you, because I thought it has kind of a Kershaw look, and they said, nope, we're making our own stuff. So it is made in China. For some people, that's going to be a make or break deal, but I did want to tell you that. A couple things that I can tell you that I would change right off the bat. One is that there's jimping on the flipper. Let me close this up and show it to you. Yeah, you can actually see there's a little jimping on the flipper. Usually they put some jimping maybe on the top, but when you flip it open, that now becomes your finger guard, and now I'm pressing into the jimping. It's not super aggressive, and with gloves, I don't think you'd notice it, but I would change that. I would just not have that on there. I don't think you need jimping on the flipper in order to get it open. Now, it does have a bearing system. My standard is always hold your wrist like this, and then just flip and see if it'll open. Not so much. So with a little bit of flicking my wrist or moving my wrist. So you can see it takes a little bit of effort. It's just not smooth coming out, like butter, but it works absolutely in a tiny little flick of the wrist, and you can get this thing to open. That's because of the weight of the blade and the size of the blade, the length of the blade, so you get that momentum going. The other thing I will mention is the frame lock, and I said there's a couple things I would change. I don't know if I would even change this, but it's just something to be aware of. That frame lock is really snug. So the positive side of that is that it's gonna lock in really securely. The downside is that for me, especially when I first got it, it was harder to get it to move to the side. Even now, move it to the side and then slide that blade down. So it takes a little bit of work and maybe a tiny bit of loosening it up. But that's something just to be aware of when you first get it. Also, the frame lock, I'll show you on this side. It doesn't stick out very much at all, which for your ergonomics is great, but sometimes for my thumb, it's a little bit hard to get some control on that in order to push it over and close it. But those are really the only two things I would take note of as far as, you know, things to be aware of in my initial use and just kind of handling the knife to see what the overall feel of it is. Price point for this knife, I've seen it from 50 bucks up to 80 bucks. I would not pay 80 bucks for this knife. Would I pay $50 for this knife? I'm glad you asked that question. Here's what I can tell you is if you're a fanboy of Milwaukee Tools, then you might want to get this knife just because you like their stuff. $50 also is going to give you, especially if you buy it at a Home Depot or a big store like that, your return policy is something you should kind of roll into thinking about the money you'll invest or spend on a knife like this. So one thing I do like about buying things at Lowe's, Home Depot, that type of place, is that, for example, I bought a Corona saw and it was 20 bucks and I could have probably got it a little bit cheaper maybe online, but I got it there, and if it breaks, there's any issues, I bring it back, and their return policy is very, it's easy to work with them. So along the same lines, if you pick this up at, say, a Home Depot and then you have some issue with it, you bring it back, it's gonna be really easy to swap it out and to get a new one. What category of knife does this fall into for me? This is an EDC / utility knife. If I was working as a carpenter in construction, is this the type of knife I would invest in? I do think that return policy thing you got to really think about in connection to like a Home Depot, a Lowe's, or another big box store, because if it breaks, you can bring it back and either get a new one, or if you say, I don't like that, I want to try something different, boom, you can bring it back and you're not going to have any major issues. So that's definitely something I would consider. D2 is going to keep an edge for quite a while. The downside is that it's going to be a little bit harder to sharpen, and because of that recurve, you got to know what you're doing in order to sharpen a recurve, and so probably sharpening in the field is going to be a little bit hard unless you're relatively familiar with how to do that. Again, the nice thing, the balance of D2 is it's going to stay sharp for a long time, so you're probably not going to have to sharpen it when you're out on the work site or out, you know, using it a lot. You can wait till you get home and then sharpen it up, or give it to somebody who you know who's good with sharpening recurved blades. As for me, where am I going to put this knife? Actually, this one's going to go into an emergency kit because I've only used it a limited amount, and that D2 is going to keep an edge for a long time. And so, you know, if I get in a situation where I need a sharp blade that I'm not worried has it been used, is it still sharp? No, with D2 that hasn't been used a ton, and if I keep it in a kit, it's going to be just for those emergency situations. So this one is going to go probably into my car emergency survival kit that I keep in my primary car, the one that I drive. And so now I've got this one in there with a couple other blades, but this one, you know, again, because of that D2, I like the fact that I don't have to worry about, you know, is it sharp when I take it out? It is sharp now. It's going to stay sharp because it's not going to be used every single day. Once again, we've been looking at this knife from the Milwaukee Tool company, and this is in their Hardline series. Let's hear from you. What do you think about the fact that a company like Milwaukee is putting out kind of more everyday carry style knives? Are you like excited? Are you like, I'm not so keen on it, I'm gonna go back to the companies I know as knife companies? In the comment section down below, let's hear what you think about this knife and overall your kind of sense and approach to, do you like when a company that generally doesn't make knives starts getting into making knives, all right? Thanks for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Just click that little red button. And as always, more videos coming soon. Take care.